afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. A word of welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining for this working lunch of ministers and heads of delegations on tourism, peace and social inclusion. The purpose of this meeting is to give us all the opportunity to share some of your country's valuable experiences in using tourism as a tool for peace and social inclusion. So we have a program today which starts with a few remarks of welcome by Her Excellency Mrs. Cecilia Alvarez Correa, Minister of Commerce, Industry and Tourism of Colombia. Minister, would you please take the floor? Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to show you a 4-minute video so you can share with us the experience of a very small village near Medellín that for more than 20 years suffered terrorism, and how now, 8 years ago, tourism changed their life as a way of living. So the video and the images speak louder than words, so I'm gonna show them. Thank you very much for coming here and being here in Medellín. Thank you.
La paz es la tranquilidad, es la transparencia, es el amor, es la convivencia humana, ¿ya?
Es equidad, igualdad de derechos, pero que no sean teóricos, que lo teórico hay que llevarlo a la práctica. Esa es la verdadera paz para mí.
La paz es empezando por mí misma, tener paz mí misma, tranquilidad en mi hogar, en mi familia.
La confianza que le brindo a las personas para que expresen lo que ellos sientan, y realmente eso me motiva mucho. Es un aprender, compartir las ideas de ellos conmigo y viceversa.
Porque antes, cuando no trabajaba en turismo, yo era otra persona, y hoy día quizás tengo otra experiencia, como que el sentimiento que siento por las demás personas.
Me gusta trabajar en turismo, con el turismo, porque uno se relaciona con las personas que llegan, brinda un servicio.
Bueno, bienvenido al Centro Turístico y Arqueológico El Carlos. Los invitamos a que vengan a vivir una experiencia muy agradable con nosotros. Ya no somos campesinos empresarios que apostamos a la legalidad del país.
Es un proyecto de turismo de naturaleza, de personas campesinas, pero con ganas, con ahínco de seguir adelante y de a cada instante colocar un granito de arena en pos de la paz.
Y que los invitamos para que vengan a disfrutar en un centro que ha sido gestionado por unos campesinos, unos humildes campesinos, y que para que vean cómo trabajar. Solamente no somos sembrador de yuca ni de plátano, sino también las cosas que se tienen para mostrarle al país.
El mediodía ya.
Todos por un nuevo país.
Thank you, Minister Alvarez. These are indeed these two projects of ecotourism development, community-based ecotourism development in Colombia are two very interesting projects that were picked up by the International Handbook on Tourism and Peace that I mentioned to the Assembly this morning. May I now call on Dr. Taleb Rifai, Secretary General of UNWTO, to take the floor.
Thank you so much for being with us this lovely afternoon here. And once again, I want to thank you, Cecilia. I think you did the best speech ever. What they said speaks for all of us. And it says it all. So I'm not going to read anything from here as expected. You have become a real dear and close friend in a very short period of time. We can talk to each other now so frankly, so openly, and I feel always positive energy when you're around. So thank you for being with us. Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. I'm not going to talk a lot about the connection between peace and tourism, because that has been discussed so often in the course of this General Assembly. But I'm going to just restrict myself to three very quick points as to why it's important we're discussing this here. Why are we here? We're here because the theme of this conference of social inclusion is one of great, great importance. We have been in UNWTO for a long time calling to change the perspective of the way we look at tourism. Still, the word tourism carries with it connotations of lazy people laying on the beach, connotations of luxury, connotations of people that really do not look seriously at life. Maybe there is part of that in tourism, and there is nothing wrong about it. There is nothing wrong about enjoying life. But what we are talking about is trying to change the perspective and the way we look at tourism as a transformative force, not just as a powerful economic sector, which it is, but as a force that can transform societies from one stage to another. Because if it is not that, then there is no real value for us being part of this community that strives to make this world a better place. So that's why we're here, because the theme of this conference, because what we're talking about, what's uniting all of us, is to look at tourism as a transformative force and not just as a valuable economic sector that what it is. But the second reason why we're here is because it's Colombia. And because if there is anywhere that we could prove that what we're saying is correct, is in Colombia. Colombia has believed in tourism and has believed in the power of it as a transformative force and has made a difference in its life, because it combined the human ideals together with the ability of this economic sector to make this transformation. Anybody that would have listened yesterday to the speech of the president would have said, I wish he was my president or my prime minister. I heard that from so many delegates around here. He spoke with such passion, such commitment, such belief. He was saying exactly what we are trying to prove. He took the right stance, and that's why we're in Colombia, to send a vote of confidence and an appreciation to what Colombia has become. But the third important reason why we're here is because of the peace agenda that Colombia is pursuing. And that's where what we're talking about, that's what galvanizes us here today and brings us all together. Before coming here, I was joining the wonderful and lovely, determined, resilient, strong, yet full of passion Minister of Tourism of Thailand in a press conference. And what we were saying is, we will not be defeated. We will not allow the forces of darkness to take us back thousands of years. We cannot allow that. They know that they're hurting us, not just by hitting at one of the most valuable economic sectors, but by hitting our pride, our dignity, our love to our country, our love to our world. And we will not allow that to happen. We can do it. We know how to do it. peace is not just a luxury anymore. We're part of the UN system, and in the UN system there are three very important bases for why this organization was put together to start with: social progress, human rights, and peace. Without peace, there is no hope. Without hope, there is no meaning for man's life on earth. And therefore, without peace, there is absolutely no meaning for tourism or any other connected or related activity. That's what combines us here, and that's what brings us together. I thank you all for being with us this afternoon. Enjoy the food. Thank you.
May I now call Ms. Belén Sanz, the UN Women representative in Colombia, to make some introductory remarks.
So on behalf of UN Women, thank you very much for this invitation. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Executive Director of UN Women, Ms. Pumzile Mnamonyuka, who is in New York and wasn't able to accompany you here, but who is very interested not only to learn about the discussions during this event, but also to promote broader dialogue about how women can be a very integral part of tourism that is social inclusive. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to and a warm salute to Secretary General of WTO, as well as the Minister of Tourism of Colombia. And as it's been said, Colombia and the city of Medellín as a wonderful place to welcome us all this morning. I'd like to note that the international community recognizes the human rights aspect of addressing the issue of women's economic empowerment as a human right in itself. And the human right of women's economic empowerment is a very important aspect when we talk about social inclusion, including the promotion of tourism that is social inclusive. Eliminating poverty globally is recognized by the Secretary General as ethically, social, politically, and economically very relevant and a very important goal. And as the Secretary General himself pointed out very recently, poverty eradication is an indispensable requirement for sustainable development and as a matter of basic justice and human rights, and very importantly, as a prerequisite for peace. And we also recognize from UN Women and building from the Secretary General's leadership that growth remains essential for development and poverty reduction. But it must be pursued in inclusive and environmentally sustainable ways that focuses on lifting the poor out of poverty while increasing equity and equality and generating greater individual, community, and societal resilience, as it's been discussed during these days. So UN Women has been working across this agenda, especially increasing the global role of the promotion of inclusive growth to generate decent jobs, gives equal opportunities to both men and women, and distribute the income and non-income gains from prosperity more equally across society. And we are very convinced, and we have evidence for that equal access to productive employment for both men and women lies at the heart of the inclusive growth processes, as it allows excluded individuals and groups to achieve long-term sustainable growth and ultimately long-term sustainable peace. The issue of women's access to productive resources, which is something we'd like to call your attention today and during the discussion this afternoon, including natural resources as it relates to sustainable tourism, is now widely recognized as critical to development. And as we look at the outcome document of the Rio +20, which emphasizes that sustainable development must be inclusive and people-centered, women's empowerment and gender equality are an integral part of that agenda. The very recent Financing for Development conference, third international conference in Addis Ababa in July, also recognized the importance of forging a global partnership for universal inclusive economic prosperity. And member states made a very strong commitment to promote and enforce non-discriminatory laws, but also to ensure that member states commit to financing for gender equality in an approach to inclusive economies and growth. The outcome document, finally, of the SDGs, the Agenda 2030, which will be discussed in the General Assembly of the United Nations later this month, provides a very important framework for further addressing the points that we've been making with regards to the role of women in inclusive development and tourism. And in this regard, just to highlight that according to research by ILO, tourism is a labor-intensive and employment-generating sector, especially for those with limited access to labor markets, such as women, youth, migrants, and rural populations. And as 2015, women accounted between 60 and 70% of the labor force. Therefore, we'd like to emphasize that the use of that power, not only for greater inclusive societies, but also for the power for the inclusive economy that women's participation have, is a very important agenda for development at this point. I'd like to end by highlighting that the country that is hosting us today, which is Colombia and very representative of the Latin American region, still also has a very important social power that is represented by women, but also facing very important gender gaps that could be transformed if women are considered as integral actors in peace building, but also in economic growth and tourism. And in that regard, we hope that the discussions today and that during all the week of the General Assembly of WTO can put in the center of the agenda within social inclusion a society and an inclusive tourism that places women and men and gender equality a key aspect of this new fostering inclusive development and social transformation agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I now call on Mr. Arnaud Peral, the Country Director of the United Nations Development Programme here in Colombia, to please deliver his introductory remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Please enjoy your lunch. It's a great honor to be here with you today, and I would like, first of all, to thank Mr. Taleb Rifai for the wonderful opportunity to be part of this event today. Thank you so much, Secretary General, for this opportunity to address you today. Also, the greetings to Dr. Fang Liu, the Secretary General of ICAO, who is here also. To all the honorable ministers present in this event, en particular la ministra Cecilia Álvarez Correa, ministra de Comercio, Industria y Turismo de Colombia, un gusto como siempre. Obviamente my colleague of the UN Women Representative in Colombia, Belén Sanz, and all the ministers, everybody. Mr. Secretary General, I will do my best to avoid being redundant with everything that has been said already along the last 2 days, but I hope to enhance maybe a couple of elements. First of all, tourism is a very powerful driving force for change in post-conflict situation, as so many countries have experienced around the world. We could mention the dramatic growth of tourism in Croatia and Bosnia after the Balkans conflict in the 90s, and the social benefits it brought. Countries like Sierra Leone, Timor-Leste, Nepal have all embraced the tourism agenda after the peace process. And it has helped rebuild national and international trust after long-lasting wars, which have destroyed so many lives and scared away investors and tourists. Even in the island of Mindanao in the Philippines, where recent events have shown the fragility of peace, there are optimistic voices pointing at the amazing tourism potential of this part of the world. In all these countries, we generally are very good calculating the economic benefits of tourism. We sometimes recognize the social benefits, but we almost always underestimate the healing power of tourism. In post-conflict, tourism healed the minds and the land. The mines because it helped communities rebuild the future, recompose trusted relationship, and restore the culture. The land because tourism, like ecotourism and agrotourism, will value ecosystems that had been turned into battlefields and landmines during the war. This is absolutely true, but we all know that sustainable tourism cannot coexist with violence, inequality, extreme poverty, in other words, with human suffering. And this is why tourism is so important for a country like Colombia, which combines amazing natural and cultural resources, a warm and welcoming population, macroeconomic stability, but combined with an history of 50 years of conflict, which have killed more than 200,000 people, forced to displacement more than 6 million people, and have limited access to basic social infrastructure for so many rural families. In war, as we all know, there is nothing glamorous. Children are recruited by force, women are raped, peasants are forced to grow coca, and small entrepreneurs suffer extortion, limiting their potential growth. In that sense, the whole UN system here in Colombia is doing everything to be useful to the peace process and to the negotiating solution to the conflict. From helping the voices of the victims to be heard and taken into account, to helping build a culture of peace and human rights at the local level, which necessarily goes through a development agenda where no one is left behind. This is also why we welcome the vision of tourism of the government of Colombia. And it has proven to be a very important factor of development, generating peaceful territories and equity, generating more income redistribution, and generating more jobs with less invested capital and less environmental impact. As the minister didn't do it, please allow me to mention the 3 pillars of the tourism sectorial plan of Colombia for 2014 and 2018, because we really think that it's really an example. The 3 pillars of this strategy is 1, responsible and sustainable tourism. Tourism aligned with sustainable and green practices, taking into account the marvelous natural assets that Colombia has to offer. 2nd, touristic culture, achieving a balance between giving a great experience to tourists while respecting the local values and needs. And 3, tourism as a promoter of peace culture. And a great example of this strategy could be found in many places around Colombia, but just to give an example of a marvelous area that I invite you all to visit, called Caño Cristales, which is a colorful area and a river in the south of Meta, one of the departments of Colombia. And it was a very heavily affected area of the country affected by the conflict. And here in this place, with the combined efforts of the community, first of all, and the government with a visionary tourism policy promoting integrated development for the inhabitants, this place has now achieved better standards of living than many other areas around the country. And finally, tourism needs entrepreneurs with small and big dreams. So, Mr. Secretary General, Ms. Ministers, please allow me to make an advertisement for an initiative that we call Clicks for Dreams, Clicks para Sueños, Clicks por Sueños. So it's clickporsueños.org. And it's a crowdfunding platform for very, very small businesses. People who have made every effort to use the technology and the internet to put forward their talents, their creativity, and many linked to local tourism. And here you will find entrepreneurs, mainly women and victims of the conflict. You will be amazed by this creativity, so please enter the webpage, clickporsueños.org. And it was just an example of the so many facets of what we can do to really foster inclusive tourism. Because finally, what these communities really want is opportunities to reach a sky. Not a reasonable sky, but a legitimate sky of social justice and economic benefits for their families and communities. I am convinced that peace and tourism have the power to reinforce each other in Colombia to generate the most striking changes in the years to come. So I invite all the attendants to put their efforts to keep including the power of tourism in the peace and development agenda in Colombia and around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peral. Now we have the opportunity of having some of the heads of delegations, three, the Honorable Minister of Tourism of South Africa, Mr. Derek Heracom. We have also the Vice Minister of Tourism of Montenegro, Mrs. Jeska Radak Kukavic. I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm not getting it right. Lastly, we have Mr. Cohen Verlijt, Secretary General for Foreign Affairs of Flanders, who will be sharing with you their own country's experiences in using tourism as a tool for peace and social inclusion. So I now please call on the Minister of Tourism of South Africa to take the floor. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Secretary General of the United Nations World Tourism Organization, the Minister of Tourism in Colombia, other ministers of tourism, and all of you who are here, very important people. I have my reservations about the value and wisdom of these lunchtime events, because I have a suspicion people have heard a lot of speeches and they want to sit around tables and interact with each other. You may eat, but I'm not going to allow you to talk. You are going to have to listen to me because I was told to speak to you. What's the point of speaking to you if you don't listen to me? Am I right? Good. First point. Then thanks so much for giving us this opportunity. I'm getting closer to you because I'm watching you. I am watching you. The one that speaks gets expelled from this very important General Assembly. Thanks again for this opportunity. So much has been said already about peace and about tourism as an instrument for peace, as a peacemaker, tool for peace. So much was said by the Secretary General. He apologized for speaking once again today because we've heard his voice so many times. But let me tell you, when Taleb speaks, there's a new gem that we get from Taleb every time he speaks. Where are you? Have you slipped out? Still here? No, he slipped out. He's a busy man. That clip, Honorable Minister, that clip in a way said it all. And I'm going to touch a little bit on just share some ideas with you, and I will compare Colombia. I'll refer to Colombia, although I don't know much about your country, and South Africa and our experiences. And I want to just give a sense of what I believe could be the real value and contribution of tourism towards a peace process. Firstly, it's a given, we all know that tourism is potentially a very important contributor, a peacemaker, an instrument of peace, a tool for change and a tool for peace. We know that. Secondly, tourism can be a very important consolidator of peace. And thirdly, quite linked to that, tourism can be in a way, the big peace dividend. So you have peace. What did the man say on the clip? What do ordinary people want? They yearn for peace. Ordinary Colombians are not violent people. They yearn for peace. People all over the world yearn for peace. But when peace is arrived at, you do not want communities and individuals to say, we have peace now, so what? We are still hungry. We don't have jobs. So the issue, if we want lasting peace, we have to address the contributors towards the lack of peace. very quickly. We have a world which is characterized by areas of intense and horrific, horrendous conflict. We have here in this room somebody from Thailand, the minister from Thailand, horrible incidents that have happened recently all over the world. Kenya, we have our neighboring country, Kenya, who is really suffering the consequences of a thing that is done not by ordinary people, but ordinary people become the victims. And just touch briefly then on violence and conflict and wars. Ordinary people become the victims of that. And there's the notion of even the people that get caught up in the wars that become the perpetrators themselves become the victims. I don't want to go into too much detail on that. We don't have much time. But it is true. Even here in Colombia, Honorable Minister, we have ordinary people saying they've been the victims of those that are supposedly the upholders of democracy, who have been guilty of sexual violence and other incidents. So people get caught up in war and conflict, and it gets the worst out of people, and ordinary citizens are impacted on. So, if we start understanding the causes of wars and conflict, it's about inequality largely. It's about unequal access to resources. And it's about scramble for resource, sometimes internal conflicts. We had outbreaks of xenophobia in South Africa. What was the main contributor towards that? Because we dislike Nigerians or Ugandans? No. Because ordinary people, poor people are poor, and they're threatened, and there's a scramble for resources, and anyone who gets in the way becomes the victim of that. So between countries, there's competition around resources, access to resources. But it isn't as simple as that. Wars are also about intolerance, religious intolerance, sometimes notions of racial superiority, and it is also about lack of compassion and greed, human greed. So it isn't just about unequal resources, it's about the worst of humankind dominating and impacting negatively on all of us who are ordinary, peace-loving people who yearn for peace. So how does tourism contribute towards achieving that peace? Well, clearly, if it is about inequality, tourism is a great vehicle to give people livelihoods, to give people opportunities, jobs, and to equalize society. It also is a great instrument of people simply connecting to each other and getting to know each other, getting to understand each other's cultures, where we come from, talking to each other. As Taleb so beautifully put it yesterday, I think, it is about people living with each other, connecting with each other, hearing songs and participate and seeing dance, etc. And then an appreciation of each other's cultures develops and a tolerance develops. So intolerance is a contributor to war, tourism and conflict. Tourism helps break down prejudice, lack of understanding and intolerance. So good reason for us to promote tourism. But then how does tourism contribute towards that consolidation of peace, assuming we achieve peace? Well, I'll get to that in a moment. But let me just briefly touch on Colombia. You've come through 20 years of, or more, many years of civil war in Colombia. Many years of civil war in Colombia. You're getting to the end of it. And real tribute to you as government for doing what you've been doing over the last few years to put an end to this peace and to end to this violent and conflict and hostilities in your country. Still a way to go, but you've come very close to achieving that. In South Africa, we were riddled with violence and inequality and injustice for 300 years, for that matter. In just 21 years ago, we got to the end of that. We achieved democracy. Does that mean that there aren't still challenges? There are still many challenges. But at the end of the day, peace was achieved. Unity was achieved. We can build on that. Tourism is about celebrating it. People from all over the world want to celebrate the triumph of the human spirit. People from all over the world want to remember the victims of wars, the victims of internal conflict. We know it. We see it in Germany with the Holocaust museums. We see it in South Africa, and I'll get onto Colombia in a moment. We see it in South Africa. We have 8 World Heritage Sites in South Africa. One of them is Robben Island, which is really symbolic of the triumph of good over evil, the triumph of the human spirit. Another one is called the Cradle of Humankind, which is not far from Johannesburg in South Africa, which tells us a story about humanity's oneness, about our common origins. Because a lot of the wars that we have in the world is about difference, about us thinking that we are superior to other people. Racial superiority, cultural superiority, ethnic superiority. Those are the things that tear us apart, when in fact, as a species, Homo sapiens, we are so closely related to each other. And the message out of that World Heritage Site, the Cradle of Humankind, is that we are all so equal, it is just unbelievable. We are all so closely related to each other. So when you come and visit us in South Africa, you will be simply coming to visit your ancestral graves. You will be coming home. Because all of us, and I'm not going to claim it for South Africa exclusively, all of us in this room, dear ladies and gentlemen, have your roots in Africa. That's where humanity originated. That is a fact. Humanity migrated even to South America, but it all started in Africa, and we want to celebrate that. 2 World Heritage Sites. A third very important site to do with peace. 2 Nobel Peace Laureates come from South Africa. The names might be known to you. Somebody called Crazy Man, Archbishop Tutu. Have you heard the name? Crazy, wonderful man, you know? And another one you probably have never heard of, Nelson Mandela. I don't think you've ever heard of him. Oh, you have. We have one street in a township, in a place that poor people come from, a poorer part of Johannesburg called Vilakazi Street, which has the homes of 2 Nobel Peace Laureates there, close to one another. It has become a major tourist attraction. Now, sorry, I've gone over my time. What did we do in Colombia the day before yesterday, my wife and myself on my own? We took the metro rail. We hopped off and we took the cable car. We went over a place called Santo Domingo, is that right? The Barrio Santo Domingo. We saw it, and we saw beautiful advancement towards prosperity. Breaking away now, that township, or that dense settlement, was known for its incredible crime, was known, as I am told, as the base for drug dealing, for intimidation, for gangsterism, for warfare. Ordinary people become the victims. The residents of Santo Domingo, is that right? Santo Domingo are not evil people. They're not violent people, they become the victims. What we've seen through your initiatives is a peace process, because peace and prosperity are linked to each other. People are now enjoying a prosperity which they never enjoyed before, but because of a sensible intervention. And I think that those things are very important lessons. Now, you have 7 World Heritage Sites in your country. I would like to see a place like Santo Domingo. World Heritage Sites are normally about waterfalls and wetlands and forests and archaeological sites and sometimes paleontological sites, monuments like the pyramids. Very seldom about the triumph of sensible policy making, the triumph in the war against poverty and underdevelopment, because that is something that we should celebrate, and the world loves to celebrate it. And that is why I'm saying tourism becomes the beneficiary of peace. There is no tourism in areas that are riddled with conflict. There is no tourism in areas where there's insecurity, as we heard from David Scousel this morning. But we need to celebrate it. And I want to appeal to the people of Colombia. Stop your people from saying this is a dangerous country. I would walk the streets of Santo Domingo on my own. I promise you that. You are underplaying yourselves. You have made huge advances in achieving peace in your own country. That is what people yearn for. Lastly, peace is not guaranteed unless one addresses the underlying causes. Tourism helps us address those underlying causes. It is no coincidence that tourism jumps to life once peace is achieved. It is the first sector that comes in and offers people the dividend of peace. because it is easy. Suddenly you can go to that village. Suddenly you can go to places of the world, in the world, that were known for their high levels of violence and were known to be dangerous places. There you go. I've spoken for long enough. I believe that we should all, though, understand what needs to be done to achieve peace and how we can use peace and celebrate peace through tourism. Thank you.
Distinguished Minister of Tourism Colombia, Secretary General, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, in spite of all the crises, be it political, financial or natural disasters, the tourism keeps growing. Over the past 6 decades, tourism is undergoing a continuous growth and diversification as one of the largest and most developed economic sectors worldwide. Namely, after global crisis, tourism provides beyond one of rare sectors capable of quick recovery, and we are witnessing an increasing interest in making investments in the tourism industry. Tourism provides destinations with the opportunity to generate income, even when they are economically poor but cultural rich. It has a potential to employ, both directly and indirectly, different social groups, including the opportunities for part-time employment and seasonal employment for money. Furthermore, tourism can provide opportunities for extra income to people already employed elsewhere. Overall, this large network of employment opportunities can generate income for several social levels. Generating of such income results in increase of income per capita, which is one of the factors that preventively mitigates possible escalation of social unrest of civil conflicts. Tourism industry exists only in peaceful areas. It cannot exist in war zones, where its presence is reduced to the minimum in high risk of frequent conflict zones. Although situation in a turbulent region, Montenegro has succeeded in ensuring and maintaining security. Commitment to EU integration process provides security and prosperity to our country. Science, security and safety of a tourist destination are key determinants that a tourist is guided by when choosing a holiday destination. I do believe that Montenegro's membership in the NATO and the EU will have a positive impact on the future development of tourism in Montenegro, but also in the region. Membership would have an effect of the credit rating, stability for investments, and Montenegro's development in general, thus making Montenegro a safer market. Membership in these institutions make both tourists and investors feel safer. Poverty reduction, better quality of lives, stabilization of the society, protection of vulnerable groups, higher employment, peace strengthened, and tolerance fostering, all these are integral parts of a responsible and sustainable tourism. We in Montenegro are strongly committed to development of a responsible and sustainable tourism, enabling a better and safer life for all levels in our society. According to the Tourism Development Strategy of Montenegro by 2020, our vision is to make Montenegro a Mediterranean destination with a diverse offer throughout this year, with a range of unique qualities attractive to several key segments of the middle and high-end markets. In order to achieve that, we are developing appropriate luxury tourist products, and we are focused on attracting foreign investors with resources, experience, integrity, and knowledge necessary to bring about our shared vision. In this way, we are making effort to develop a high-quality tourism that strengthens Montenegrin identity and tourism that does not represent a commercial but a specific offer. The increasing significance of Montenegro as a Mediterranean tourist destination serves as a clear example showing a sound tourism development in the country. It is also reflected in statistical analysis of all around tourism organization. Montenegro is among few countries in the region recording continuous rise in the tourism sector. For several consecutive years, the World Tourism and Travel Council has been ranking Montenegro as one of the fastest growing tourist destinations worldwide in terms of total share of travel and tourism in GDP. WTTC expects that such a growth will be continuous and that by 2025 the tourism sector would generate GDP of 1.6 billion and that 1 in 3 jobs will be in tourism industry. So far, Montenegro has achieved a high level of investment attractiveness, which is important not only for the inflow of capital, but also for the fact that important foreign investors have accelerated the integration of Montenegrin economics area into the international one. We are very pleased with the fact that a number of the leading brands worldwide have selected our Montenegro for development of their brand at the European market. It shows that the sustainable development concept that Montenegro bound itself to in the strategic documents in getting, day by day, new and fuller importance and is becoming functional in the real life. Major projects in the tourism area currently implemented on our coast are very significant for Montenegro as they bring world standards, new jobs and new quality. On the other hand, our special resources are very limited, so we are taking a very responsible attitude towards valorization of the space in order to avoid its devastation and economic failures. Furthermore, Montenegro is fully committed to the sustainable development concept, but in my opinion, I think that our public still does not have sufficient understanding of that development concept. Combining and balancing economic, environmental and sociological factors in each development investment project with full transparency and at the same time acting efficiently is not simple, but it is an important task of this ministry and we are paying particular attention to it. Furthermore, the fact that Montenegro is a small country can be a major advantage in tourism, particularly in fostering the rural development and regional integration of the northern part of the country. Science visitors can experience a broad diversity in the short distance, which is a very attractive feature, particularly to closer European markets. That is why we are investing in valorization in the northern region and less development municipality of Montenegro. Having in mind that tourism is the only product consumed at the place of manufacturing, we must not forget that the whole experience is important, including people, that is, the interaction between the local population and tourists, as finally, that is the factor that creates the experience and makes the difference between destinations. Therefore, responsible policy, legislation and clear strategy provide the basis for sustainable development of tourism, poverty reduction, protection of natural resources and their way of living, as well as the promotion of economic development. I am certain that we will all together develop a joint plan for future development of tourism contribution and the force of transformation for peace building and sustainable development, making our sector the main driving force in strengthening the international peace and security, multicultural respect, human rights, social justice and protection of our planet. Thank you very much.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'll try to be short because I know that I have to compete with the wonderful dessert. And Madam Minister, I want to take the opportunity also to thank you on behalf of the government of Flanders. For those of you who don't know where Flanders is, it's part of Belgium, the northern part of Belgium. And also to thank you on behalf of the associate members, small group of countries of delegations sitting way back in the big conference room, to thank you for the great hospitality of your country. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the news media remind us every day of the importance of debating and further exploring the central theme of this lunch. Although peace is a universal aspiration that all of us subscribe to, war and violence continue to define the lives of millions, and peace can never be taken for granted. Today, in our globalized and interconnected world, a conflict anywhere in the world can generate a conflict anywhere else. Peace is a global responsibility for all of us, not only of certain nations, political leaders, organizations, communities, or individuals. Building and maintaining peace demands our continued attention. Ladies and gentlemen, a century ago, 100 years ago, the world was at war. The first global conflict took the life of more than 9 million soldiers from about 50 modern-day nations. To this day, the First World War, or the Great War as it was called, lives on in our collective memory. 600,000 soldiers and civilians lost their lives in my country, among whom 550,000 in the Westhoek region, also known across the world as Flanders Fields. Flanders experienced all aspects of this conflict firsthand: the invasion, the occupation, the deliberate destruction of cultural heritage, the 4-year trench war, the first gas attacks, and finally the liberation in 1918. Remembering past conflicts educates people on the causes, the mechanisms, and the consequences of war, and makes them reflect on peace and war. This is the reason why my government, the government of Flanders, is implementing a large-scale commemoration project remembering the centenary of the First World War. The Remembrance Project comprises all policy areas of the government, including foreign policy, culture and media, education, heritage, and of course also tourism. A project office has been set up within the Flemish Department of Foreign Affairs, which acts as some kind of one-stop shop within the Flemish administration for the overall management of this project. It liaises directly with different actors, both at the local level, the Flemish level, and the international level. As soon as circumstances allowed it, people started to visit the landscapes of the war in the Westhoek region, like some kind of pilgrimage or out of curiosity. War tourism and remembrance have thus existed since 1919, and the tourist agency Visit Flanders is building on that legacy today. In order to be able to handle the larger visitor flows during the remembrance period responsibly, the government of Flanders appropriated 15 million euros for the centenary investment program. The investment program is complemented by an events program for which my government has made available more than 6 million euros. Ladies and gentlemen, the aim of the development of remembrance tourism is to give visitors access to an important part of history, which may in some cases be a very intimate and emotional family history. The government of Flanders is only too aware of how carefully tourism should be approached in this context. The approach we have developed for this is called Tourism Plus. It combines 7 different principles, from respect for the victims, history and relics, to multiple voices, deepening, and a message of peace. Tourism Plus is highly regarded both nationally and internationally, and may serve as a source of inspiration for dealing with other sensitive commemorative sites around the world. It is a guideline for furthering our thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, we highly appreciate the fact that UNWTO decided to embark and to join forces with us on a project proposal called Advancing Peace, Reflecting on the Past and Inspiring the Future. The idea of this project proposal, for which we are still looking for interested sponsors, let's be very frank and clear about that, the idea of this project proposal is to develop a policy framework which takes into account the important mechanism and the important nexus between peace and tourism, and to develop also ethical guidelines for tourism to conflict-related sites of the past. The idea is not to replace the global code of ethics of UNWTO, but building on this milestone text and to further elaborate upon it. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who may be interested to join forces also with the government of Flanders, with UNWTO in this specific project, there is a small leaflet available, so those of you who are interested can always contact me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of South Africa, for your very inspiring remarks and very rich experience in using tourism as a tool for peace. For the Vice Minister of Montenegro also, thank you very much for sharing your own country's experiences, and congratulations on the spectacular growth of tourism in your country. From my dear friend, Mr. Verlaert, thank you for speaking also about this important project that UNWTO is jointly working on with the government of Flanders. And Minister, a last word, you arouse the curiosity of everyone to visit Barrio de Santo Domingo. Thank you.